Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Welcome back to part 2 of this CNG Community Chat on when your children start to see the covert narcissism for what it is. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, go back and start there. We covered the moment that it clicked for each of these women's kids and what that day-to-day looks like now. In this half, we go further. Are these patterns showing up again in the next generation? And what do these moms wish that someone had told them when they were standing right where you may be standing today? Let's pick it back up where we left off. It is hard to watch because our kids are on their own journey through this, and that is hard to watch. Okay. Anyone else want to share what it's like to watch your kids go through this journey? You're watching from the sidelines. Are they speaking up or building that relationship with their dad anyways, or have they gone no contact?
Well, my children haven't really spoken to my husband since that night in December when my son found him with the other woman in the middle of the night. And my husband is blaming me. So this is another covert tactic, blame shifting. And he's like, "You're using our children to get revenge on me for the affair." And like, our children are smart and they can make up their own mind. And what you did was horrible. You know, you broke the marriage covenant and you broke all of our hearts. We all thought you were our hero. And all of a sudden, we just watched your fall from grace. And it's all your fault. It's not mine that the children are mad at you. It's not my fault that they prefer my company over yours. You know, I'm not like luring them with like candy and puppies or anything. I'm just a normal, happy mother that loves her children, and I'm grateful that my husband got me pregnant with them. And so I'm really trying to see the gratitude that I can pull from this whole situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think our kids is where that gratitude lies for many of us. Okay. Catherine, are your kids speaking up against this other parent, or are they building that relationship with him?
So, not speaking up, but when I took them away for the weekend, it was because of something that he had done. And when we came back, my middle son, that had a hard time with it, wouldn't look him in the eye and wouldn't talk to him and kind of avoided him. And so he was noticing this. And similar to you, Lauren, as far as being made responsible for that dynamic, he asked me questions like, "What did you tell them? What do they know?" And I've been telling him ever since I woke up, there are no secrets in this house because that's what gives us life. And I tell the truth, but I don't badmouth anyone. I simply tell the truth. And he kept saying, "Well, our son won't talk to me. He won't even look at me." And he's saying this shocked, as though he doesn't know why we left for the weekend and that it wasn't something that he did. And also that it's my responsibility to be a go-between him and his own son, who he should have a relationship with, who I have had to be this buffer for because he hasn't shown them the love and care that they need. And growing up, watching my sons not knowing what was going on, but I knew it was wrong. I knew that he wasn't being the father he should be to his kids. I would tell my kids how much they are loved. I would cover for him and say he really does love you, even though he wasn't showing it, because I didn't want them to hurt and feel like their dad doesn't love them.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it was just so interesting, but it was an empowering moment because now that we're all awake, I was able to look at him and just say, I think that's something between you and your son. You should ask him why he is having a hard time. But before that, because I don't want to put my son in the line of sight either, I just said, why do you think he would be acting this way? But that's where I see the vacuum of self-reflection that he simply cannot see or connect this, what someone else does to his behavior.
Right.
He doesn't have consequences. That doesn't exist for him,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, it's extremely common for the relationship between a covert narcissistic parent and the kids to fall apart. And then it's extremely common for the spouse, whether that be the mom or the dad, that spouse to take all the blame. You're the one, you turn the kids against me. And then that all gets, you get accused of all of that. But I remember, even in my own situation where he looked at me and made the comment, well, the boys don't want to go with me. And I looked at him and said, that's not my fault. And trying to pass that back to him, but they don't get it. They're going to blame it on everything else under the sun and not their own behavior.
Yeah, because taking accountability is one thing that a covert narcissist is allergic to. My husband will not take accountability for anything.
Mhm.
It's always somebody else's fault. It's
Always.
sad. It's
Yeah.
pitiful and it's immature.
So did anybody else go through making all the excuses to our kids? That was how I parented at the beginning. I was like, well, daddy's having a bad day, or he loves you, he just doesn't know how to share it. Kathleen, go ahead.
I didn't make excuses, in general. I didn't put my husband up on a pedestal while they were growing up in general, kind of as what Lauren was saying and Catherine. However, I would when he did lose his cool and was extremely harsh towards my children, our children, that's when I would intervene and first of all defend them and later go to them and say, you know what, your dad really does love you. Or my daughter right now and my 20-year-old is saying, I think he's really disappointed in me. He wants me to do this, this, and this. Um, but I think I would defend or I would say make excuses for him when when my children would say, "Dad doesn't love me. Dad is, so controlling and this." But in general, I never really put him up on a pedestal, and I feel like we were getting riddled with like in the line of fire our whole family life. Um, that it was so normal that he yelled and screamed and didn't walk his children until they were 18 months old, and I did everything. I went food shopping with 2 carriages. He was not involved, and that was just the norm. He traveled, and I did it all, and now life is different, but my 20-year-old actually did tell me when she said he's a complete narcissist, she did say, "Mom, I wished you got a divorce years ago," and that was earth-shattering to me, where I just listened, I didn't make excuses for
Mhm.
him, and, I think to answer your question, I made excuses when they were younger and they would say bad things like, "Oh, dad is this, this, and this." But in general, we just kind of went
Mhm.
along our happy, quote, unquote, "life," and then the way it was normal, and when things went bad, that's when I kinda protected him a little bit, but not anymore,
Yeah.
not anymore.
Yeah. When I stopped making excuses for him, my relationship with my kids improved. That is when my relationship with them got better. And it was in their teenage years, their young to middle teenage years, where I stepped back and I quit. Basically, I quit trying to talk them out of their feelings. And then I look at it and go, oh my gosh, why ever was I trying to talk them out of their feelings?
Was just gonna say, I'm sure you did your very best. We all did as mothers, we worked with what we knew at the time, and now I know better.
Now I know better. Yeah, but at the time, I thought I was protecting them. That goes back to that name of protection. I thought I was
Mhm.
protecting them,
Yep.
but they were feeling what they were feeling, and now I've learned since then the value of and the power of validating somebody's feelings.
When I got kind of past making the excuses, I found though that I just kind of like Kathleen said, I just did everything. Like I was the mom, the dad, everything. Like I'd take them to all their dance and sports things and school. And even when I started working, I would make my shifts so that I'd drop them off at school, go to work, be back for their thing, take all sick days. I would take them off. Like, so yeah, it was just, I honestly felt like a single mom for a long time, even during the marriage. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that. I think most of us were single parenting when we didn't know we were single parenting. We were doing, and in fact, I now call it counter parenting because we're actually parenting against the efforts of, a person who's trying to tear them down. Okay. Do you see any of your kids repeating patterns in these? You guys have young adult children, so are they moving into their own relationships? Do you see any of these patterns? Kathleen, go ahead.
The patterns I see are directed towards me. My children, I don't see my son exhibiting patterns towards his girlfriend. However, my 3 children, and I was told this years ago by someone when they were in elementary school, "I don't like how they talk to you." And now I started hearing, probably the last 10 years, "What is wrong with you, mom? Mom, what are you even thinking? Why did you do that? You ruin everything." And I think, "Oh my god." Light dawns. They've been saying this for a long time, and it's I just hope they don't carry that into their relationships, because I do see it towards me. It's
Towards you.
Yeah,
Okay.
towards me.
That's hard. And I can relate to that. I will say this, that there's a whole lot of brain development that happens between the ages of 18 and 25. And prior to the age of 25, these kids don't have a fully developed that prefrontal cortex. You do the research into brain development, you'll see it. But in these ages that are still, you said he's 23, so you got 2 more years of that brain development. Ideally, hopefully, let that relationship with you be safe, and hopefully his relationship with his girlfriend is safe. That's all it takes to help him to get past this and not get stuck in it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
being stuck in it is what would then, follow up with carrying narcissistic tendencies later into life. So those 2 years right now that you have with him are precious, and I hope
Yep,
that they can be, a time of safety and connection for you and him.
yep. I don't see it as much, the derogatory comments towards me, as much now as I did before, and maybe that's because of the awakening of especially my 2 daughters. Maybe they're kind of empathizing or realizing I shouldn't say that, but years ago, I think, "Oh, wow, what is wrong with me?" Well, like, everybody's saying that. What but I don't see it as much now. I think now they see it with
Good.
him, and they're hearing it. So that's decreased, which is
Okay,
a blessing.
good. Anybody else seeing the patterns repeat with your kids?
I remember when my son was a teenager, husband would make me the butt of a joke and my son would laugh and he'd play off of that joke. And, you know, I had a good sense of humor about it, but I kind of like started to avoid going somewhere in a car with the two of them because it wears your spirit down. And finally I spoke up and my son was appalled. He didn't realize, that he was joining in on hurting my feelings, and he is the sweetest, most compassionate young man. I'm very proud of him, and I don't see a single thing, negative thing
Good.
from his father in him anymore. He's 26, so he's in that age where his brain has reached, I think, the point where he is who he is.
Okay. Good. I'm really glad to hear that, and I'm hope that that continues, and I pray that that continues. Anyone else want to share? Are you seeing any repeated cycles?
Necessarily a cycle of abuse. I did see my oldest fall into friendships that were toxic quite often. And I didn't see the pattern back then because I wasn't awake to all of this. But now looking back, I can see where there's a gravitation towards people who feel familiar to what you experience at home. And I will say it's kind of interesting as far as patterns. Um, for me, one of the hardest things and one of the hardest questions to answer was, how do I teach my kids to behave in the house or as people when the other adult in the house doesn't follow any of the rules?
Mhm.
It was really hard to teach them to be responsible with chores, or just to follow any set of rules, because my husband would show up and contradict everything. Or if I was trying to uh affect consequences for poor behavior, he would contradict me as well. Things that they were in trouble for, or if they were grounded, or if they'd had their allowance cut, then he would go take them for ice cream and do things that
Mhm.
completely undermined everything that I did. So like you said, was it counter parenting?
Yes.
Definitely. It's like, yeah, it's like walking through quicksand. It's hard.
Yeah. Sharon, do you want to share anything regarding seeing these patterns in your kids?
Fortunately, I haven't seen them. My oldest is still very nervous to date, though, and I think being male, that he's afraid of sort of being like his dad, so I think that's made it hard for him to be in relationships. But with my daughters, they're very much like, I had the whole talk with them before they started dating. They're like, "Of course I wouldn't let someone talk to me like that or treat me bad," and kind of like took me back. Like, it's okay, I'm glad that got through to them. But whereas more, I was like, I'm very people pleasing when I was dating and didn't even really see it as being
Okay.
mistreated, or so I kind of see that from them seeing what I went through, thankfully, and I think therapy helped a lot with that. They see that that's not a pattern they're gonna let go through to their relationships.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. And last question is, what would you want another parent that's standing in the same place as what you've been through or going through the same thing you've gone through? What would you want them to know?
I would want to be told, don't let him dismiss your concerns. My husband brought home these two pieces of petrified wood, and they were sharp, hard, and heavy, and really sharp. And he put them on either side of our fireplace. And our son was 18 months old, just learning how to walk. And I said, Bill, those are too dangerous to be in the house. You got to put them outside. And he's like, they're from the Jurassic period. We can't put them outside. I said, they've been in the rain for 1 billion years, so why can't they be outside? Our son, and they might be 1 billion years old, but our son is 1 year old, and he's going to get hurt on one of those. And sure enough, like less than 1 week later, he fell into into one of the pieces of petrified wood, and he had a really bad gash right here in the center of his forehead. And
Mm.
the blood was streaming down his face, and I picked him up, and I used the F word, and I told you that one of the children was gonna get hurt on those effing rocks. And I put my son in the car seat, and I drove to the ER. My husband didn't even offer to go with me or anything, but
Hmm.
I I was trying to keep Liam awake the whole time. I didn't know if he had a concussion, and, fortunately, there was a plastic surgeon on call, so he did the stitches, and he did a pretty good job. The scar's not that bad, but
Good.
it just makes me mad. I still see that scar, and I still see those damn pieces of petrified wood, and I just feel so angry because he just so casually dismissed me. Like, that happens so often, but for it to have happened and then for one of the children to get hurt, that was really upsetting for me.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry that you went through that, and I am glad that he is, okay and with all of that. Okay. Sharon, go ahead.
So I think the biggest thing, because when our children are hurting, we're hurting, and like you just want to do everything to protect them. And so I think a lot of parents forget to take care of themselves. I know I did that, and it's taken me a long time to finally get to a point where, so I'd want to tell their parents, help your kid, but make sure you carve out time for yourself, be able to vent with a therapist or friend or family, because you're taking in all their pain and you have your own and it's triggering. So I think you really need to find a way to outlet that so you don't take that all in with your own pain as well, because it's a lot.
Okay. Yes, very well said, and thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine, do you have any words for parents who are going through this?
I do. You can't protect the kids by staying. There are ways you can help your kids, therapy, being honest, and other things, but staying isn't the answer. You need to have that conversation with yourself and make that decision. And don't stay simply because of the kids.
Kathleen, the last piece that I'm asking is, do you have
Yes.
any words that you'd want to share with other parents who are going through this?
I would suggest or encourage someone to stand their ground, and if you have an opinion, stick with it, or if you're told to do something you don't feel comfortable doing. For instance, our wedding album 27 years ago, he wanted the one by one photo of us on the cover of the leather bound album, which we never look at. He wanted it off center, and he demanded. This is one example of many, for me to call the photographer, have it placed in the correct spot. This is not the spot where I wanted the photo. And I did. I called the photographer. I was embarrassed. There have been numerous instances where I would be asked to do things that were really out of just outlandish, and I can't believe didn't say no. So I would encourage someone and just stand your ground and say no. If you don't want to do it, say no, I'm not doing it. Or if you're coerced into doing something, say no. Just stand your ground. Be strong.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for joining us here today and for sharing your thoughts and your experiences with this community. I do sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the CNG Community Chat. If any part of what these women shared felt familiar to you, the guilt, the watching your kids carry pain you couldn't shield them from, the slow and sometimes sudden ways that they started to see it, please know that you are not alone in this journey. That's exactly why we do these community chats. And if you'd like to be a part of a future conversation just like this one, you can sign up for them at covertnarcissism.com. I'll see you next time. And until then, I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more. It's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.